We want you to enjoy the love, the joy, and the peace that only Jesus can bring into your heart. Well, let me ask you a question. Are you feeling the economic pinch in your pocketbook? Yes, I see some nods there. Are you having trouble making the two ends of your finances meet in the middle? Oh, I can imagine some of you are. We are sometimes. But you know, I think we would all agree that economic times right now are very difficult for many, many families. And it's hard now, especially if someone has lost their job. There are not as many really good-paying jobs that are available. And it's also difficult because it seems like prices continue to increase in many areas. And many families are just barely scraping by in order to make ends meet. Well, today I want to try to help families and individuals who are feeling the economic pinch. This is actually something that God is concerned about. And in His Word, He helps us know how to deal with situations like this. And so today I want to try to give some practical advice from the Bible to help you handle your finances a little better, perhaps. Did you know that Jesus often spoke about money? As a matter of fact, He spoke more on the subject of money than any other subject that He ever talked about. And over half of the parables that He gave in the New Testament, over half the teaching lessons that He taught in the New Testament are somehow related to money or money management. And so I think it's important for us to realize that God has a concern for how we manage our resources, our finances, and He wants to help us. Now, we all know that the consequences of mismanaging money can be very devastating. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But there's also the consequence of not planning ahead or not preparing for the future. Now, here's a conflict that some people have. They believe that if they were to plan for the future, that somehow would negate the faith that they have in God to take care of them. They are told not to think about the future, not to worry about the future, but to trust in God. And you know that is a biblical principle. Don't worry about the future. Put your trust in God. But they think that means that they're not to plan ahead. They're not to make preparations for the future. They're just going to put themselves in the hands of God and let Him take care of them. Well, they overlook the other scriptures that tell us to plan ahead, to make preparations, to be prepared as much as we possibly can. You see, our faith in God is not negated by our ability to plan for the future. He wants us to do both. He just doesn't want us to worry about the future. He doesn't want us to put our trust in our plans. He wants us to put our trust in Him as we make plans for the future. Now that's a very important distinction to make. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because according to the IRS, or rather Social Security, about 85 out of 100 people will have less than $250 to their names in money when they reach retirement age. Now think about that for a minute. 85% of the people will not have enough, more than $250 in cash available to help them through. And only 2% of Americans that reach 65 are financially independent. That means that the rest of us have to have some provision to get us along. We have to save up money so that we can be able to deal with our expenses. We have to move in with our children or whatever something else may be to make up the difference when we are no longer able to work to support ourselves. So we need to make plans and we need to trust in God at the same time. Now, most people assume that their money problems come as a result of not making enough money. How many of you here think you need to make more money? Okay, some of you are honest. You're raising your hands. And that's not bad to think that. But your problems don't come. Most people don't have the problem of not making enough money. They have the problem of not managing the money that they make. Now think about this for a moment. An average worker who makes only $25,000 a year. Now $25,000 a year is not a big paying salary, is it? But if you made $25,000 a year, by the time you retire, you would have made over $1 million. Well, that sounds like a lot of money over a 40-year period, doesn't it? But you do have money coming in, and people are able to survive on probably less than what you make in many cases, many of us anyway. So the problem isn't necessarily a matter of a lack of money, it's how we manage the money that we have, how we spend it, how we allow the money to control us instead of us controlling the money. So today and for the next 2 weeks, I'm going to talk about how we can manage our money better. We're going to examine 7 steps to financial freedom that are found in the book of Proverbs. And these were given to us by King Solomon, whom the Bible says was the wisest and wealthiest man to ever live. Now that was in his day anyway, but certainly his wisdom has stood the test of time. And today we're going to talk about 3 steps toward financial freedom, and then of course the other 4 steps will come in the next 2 weeks. Now, as I present these, I don't want you to get the impression that they are presented in a particular order that you must follow. It's more important that you implement these steps than you follow a particular order. Nor are they presented in the order of priority. There is, certainly some of them are more important than others, but I'm presenting them on a level field here. I just want you to understand what the 7 steps are. And I want you to take those steps because I want you to be free from the burden of financial problems. All right. The financial principles that Solomon teaches in the book of Proverbs are still appropriate today and have stood the test of time for thousands of years. And to the extent that we apply these principles to our situation and we follow the example that Solomon gave us here, we can experience relief from the financial stress that we may have in our lives right now, and we can be more obedient to God also. So let's talk about the first step. First step is take responsibility for your finances. Take responsibility for your finances. Now, I have a problem, if anyone has a problem with anything, especially finances, they must acknowledge that they have a problem, first of all, and then they must take responsibility, secondly, before they can ever make any progress on solving the problem. If you ignore it, it's not going away. If you were to say, well, it's not really my fault I'm in this situation, I blame it on somebody else, or I blame it on the circumstances, the things that have happened to me, it's God's fault for allowing me to get into this financial problem. If you have that kind of attitude where you're trying to blame other people for your finances, then you're not going to get out of your hole. You're going to be in the bottom of the pit. Or if you become so, you feel helpless to be able to deal with your problem, or you feel like you're so depressed that you can't do anything about it, then you're not going to solve the problem either. You're only going to be able to deal with it when you come to accept it as a problem, acknowledge that that it's your problem and you're going to do something about it. Listen to Proverbs chapter 10, verse 4. Proverbs 10:4. Lazy hands make a man poor, but diligent hands bring wealth.